Hi and welcome to the Katala Show. Let's take a look at the world of environmental areas in this country, places where we have natural resources, national parks, and we are talking today to Mr. Timothy Peary, who's a part of Mizu Eco Care. Now, one of the things that we are going to speak to with Mr. Peary is Kasanka National Park, which is in Chitambo district in Central Province. This is an area which is famous for some of the bat migrations that actually happens there. And of course, as a national park, you do find different species there and wildlife, and which seem to be getting threatened because of pollution in the surrounding rivers, as well as the surrounding land due to businesses opening up there. And of course, there are communities that run forests there. And so we're trying to take a look at how the effect in the environmental side to Kasanka National Park is actually affecting tourism and business in the area. And going further, Ms. Eco Care has been doing a whole lot of work in Southern Province. You do know that whenever you visit Southern Province, or even if you have never visited Southern Province, one of our biggest tourist areas in particular in Livingstone, there is a whole lot of elephants, and they're free to move around as much as they need to, including those famous monkeys that like to steal whatever food that you're eating. But then the movement of the elephants is being affected by plastic waste. So the route that the elephants are using, they're going through the plastic that probably you and me are throwing around. So we'll take a look at that. And finally, of course, we won't forget to touch base on Forest 27. The last time I had visited Forest 27, I did speak to Mr. Peary and some of the forest guards, and we're trying to check on the update of what's going on at Forest 27. There has been statements that have come from the current government saying that those that have built houses in Forest 27 have been given notice up to December 28th, 2021 to demolish those structures. One may ask, do the structures remain and the people vacate the area, because maybe it will still cause more ecological damage to Forest 27. So all of this is coming up on the Katala Show. Keep watching Spring 24 TV. Welcome back. You're still watching the Katala Show. Thank you so much, Mr. Timothy Peary from Mizu Eco Care, for coming through to the show.
Thank you so much, Katala. It's a pleasure to be part of the show.
Mr. Peary, I know that there was a walk here in Lusaka, not in particular, at Kasanka National Park, and this was, in obviously the commemoration of the bat migration that happens there every year, and also because there is a threat to the water in the national park being threatened due to pollution and certain practices of agriculture. How huge is this threat for Kasanka National Park?
Thank you very much, Katala, for that particular question. The threat to Kasanka National Park is huge. Initially, let me give a background to the national park. Kasanka National Park is one of our pristine national parks. It's important for a number of reasons. Of course, initially, it's famous for the bat migration, which takes place every year between October and December. 10 million bats fly into Kasanka to roost. And they come from different places. They come from DRC, Congo, they come from Sudan, they come from West Africa. And these bats have an important ecological role. You notice they eat fruits and they drop droppings, meaning they drop seeds and they plant trees literally for us. So that's an ecosystem service that they perform. Kasanka National Park is the place where they come, so it hosts them. So you can imagine if we damage this national park, it means we put this important migration under threat. It's important because it's the largest mammal migration in the world. There is no migration larger than this one. So that's the first threat. The second threat is with Kasanka National Park as an ecosystem itself. It's got various wildlife. All these will be under threat if the rivers are damaged and polluted, if the shallow lakes there, like the Wasa lakes, are damaged and polluted, if the trees are cut down, if you have deforestation taking place in the area, all those activities threaten this ecosystem. Apart from that, you have the local communities that have always lived in this area. Long before Kasanka National Park was even made a national park, they've lived in this area, they've lived as one, in unison with the wildlife, with the ecosystem. The moment you grab land from them, the moment you grab their community forests, you are disturbing their livelihoods. The moment you displace them, you are disturbing their way of life. So that's another threat. So these agricultural projects and mining explorations that are taking place in the Kafinda GMA of Kasanka National Park, they are a threat to the environment, they are a threat to the local communities in that particular area. So we are not necessarily against development. Development is a very good thing, but this is not 1961. We live in a time where development has to be sustainable. It has to respect the environment. It has to respect local communities. It also has to respect the laws that guide how you develop, what type of structures and developments you can put in a GMA and a national park.
So when it comes to, you have mentioned what the threat is, and obviously you have said this is one of the biggest mammal migrations in the world. That's like 10 million bats, a tourist wonder in itself. So what would be the solution so that businesses that want to develop near Kasanka National Park can go ahead? I mean, we see this in Livingstone, near the Victoria Falls, near, you know, one of the biggest, one of the 7 wonders of the world. So how can we have businesses coexisting with the national park, and if they do coexist, how much money can you think can be properly generated?
Thank you so much for that question, Katala. First and foremost, we have to get rid of this belief that's there that there is a shortage of agricultural land. And because there is a shortage of agricultural land, investors have now to get into game management areas and national parks. Zambia has so much land. Whoever wants to practice commercial farming, commercial agriculture, can do so in so many other farming blocks that we have as a country. Zambia has some of the richest soils we have in Africa, in the world. So there is no need to pick a GMA or a national park as your destination for agricultural activities. We also have to look at what the general management plan for Kasanka National Park and its GMA say. The general management plan for Kasanka National Park and its GMA make it very clear that you cannot have commercial farming in this particular area. And the reason for that is clear. If you have commercial farming, it means clearing of vegetation. And that's not what you want to happen in a GMA and a national park, because we're talking about the perfect habitat for wildlife. So if you go by the original general management plan, commercial farming is not even supposed to be considered in this particular area. Secondly, these businesses that want to invest in farming can relocate to another area where they can do their agriculture without being at conflict with wildlife, without being at conflict with tourism. Because we're protecting Kasanka National Park and standing in solidarity with it because it's part of the tourism sector. The government just declared that we are going to have the green economy as our economic model. If we're going to have a green economy, it means we're going to take on economic activities that are sustainable. Economic activities that give us foreign exchange whilst at the same time taking care of the environment. That's the advantage of having the tourism sector. It gives you the opportunity to generate funds through tourism whilst having minimal damage on the environment and ecosystems. So it's possible for us to have both. It's not a situation where we have to choose between agriculture and tourism. Protect the national parks, protect the GMAs, let tourism go on as usual, Let's market them so that we have a lot of tourists coming in from outside. Let's market them to our own people so that we also have an increase in the number of local tourists that visit these places so that they appreciate the natural resources their own country has. Then let's have commercial activities take place in designated farming blocks where they can grow the crops they want to grow, as long as, of course, they are also conducting their activities in a sustainable manner, in a manner that respects the environment and respects the fact that ecosystems surrounding farming blocks have to be given an opportunity to regenerate as well.
All right, we're still speaking to Mr. Timothy Peary, who is an environmentalist with Musi EcoCare, and we were speaking about Kasanka National Park and why development really shouldn't be taking part there. It's got natural resources, shallow lakes, rivers, the biggest migration of mammals in the world. That's 10 million bats, and obviously this is a place that needs to be reserved. This is a huge tourist attraction. So we're still talking to him, and we go to a southern province, in particular in Livingstone. Now the elephants in Livingstone actually use a corridor, to get into the national park. Now, because of development that's happening in the area and the fences that are coming up, it's sort of closing up the area that the elephants use to get into the national park. So this is how when you get into the national park, you see the elephants. So now the elephants naturally are using a different route in order to get to their habitat, the national park, and they're going through an area where people live, where people are, obviously they're throwing plastics. Not everybody adheres to, garbage collection the way it should, and then they're ending up eating the plastics. And what's going on there is something that we'll be getting into with Mr. Timothy Peary, and of course not forgetting that we will touch base on the update with Forest 27. Keep watching the Katala Punga Show.
There is more going on in this country than I will ever be able to conclusively report from this news desk. Come with me and find out.
You are speaking to Amina Kaunda. I am calling from Spring TV.
Describe yourself as an openly gay woman. What was that like for you in a country that describes homosexuality as a quote-unquote crime?
For news that goes beyond the headlines, where politics and politicians are a feature, not the headline. Uncharted, every Sunday, only on Spring TV.
Welcome back. You're still watching the Katala Punga Show on Spring 24 TV. Mr. Peary, one of the things I know that we were talking about, behind the scenes is that the elephants are actually eating these plastics. The first thing that comes to my mind is the digestion process for the elephants, even just the threat to the community, because they're passing through where people actually live, because the corridor, their natural corridor to get to the national park is being blocked because of developmental issues. Apart from the poor elephants eating the plastics, what's even the threat to the inhabitants where they're crossing?
Thank you so much for that particular question, Katala. The Mosotunia National Park is another pristine ecosystem we have, and it's very important for our tourism as a country. It's also important because it's a World Heritage Site. But it's not just important for Zambia. It's important for the entire southern region, because the Mosotunia National Park and the Victoria Falls are also part of what's called the KAZA, Kavango Zambezi Transboundary Conservation Area, which is one of the largest terrestrial conservation areas in the world. So when we look at this KAZA area, we're supposed to forget the political boundaries we have, because the KAZA area is shared by 5 countries: Zambia, Namibia, Angola, Botswana, and Zimbabwe. So these elephants we are talking about, it's not like they're always in Zambia. Depending on what time of the year it is, they move along these corridors between these 5 countries. So you will notice no single country can claim to own these elephants. That's why it's important that we take care of these elephants, because we're not just taking care of them as government trophies for Zambia. We're taking care of them as government trophies for the entire collection of 5 nations. So when they come into Zambia, into the Mosatunya National Park, they come in through a corridor they've used for a very long period of time. And they don't just end there. They use the same corridor to go all the way to the Kafue National Park. So it's a very important connection route for them all the way to the Kafue National Park. The challenge we have is that Livingstone, our tourism capital, has had a population increase, and developments have taken place, encroachments have taken place, and most of this encroachment is heading towards the national park. Sadly, the Mosatunya has no GMA, so you don't have any buffer zone between the national park and the surrounding community. So it's very easy for developmental activities to have a negative impact on the national park. Because of the reduction in size of their habitat, because of developmental activities taking place, because of fences coming up in the corridor and in sections of the national park close to the corridor, elephants are now being forced to divert from this area and get into the local communities. When they get into the local communities, initially you have human-wildlife conflict. So you have agitation amongst the communities as they go there to feed on mangoes. This conflict, in some cases, has led into elephants being shot down as they become a danger to the community and to the game rangers as well. So that's a conflict we're supposed to manage very, very carefully. So the issue is, what do we do to try and mitigate this particular problem? The first thing we need to do is have our councils plan settlements properly. If we plan our settlements properly, it means instead of the settlements head to be encroaching on the national park, the settlements should be moving away from the national park outwards. That's one solution we can have. Secondly, the management of these elephants needs to be done in collaboration with the communities. Oftentimes, the reason why communities react negatively towards elephants is because they don't see the benefit of having live elephants. The benefit only comes in when the elephant is dead and there is meat to be eaten. So we need outreach campaigns, educational campaigns, to talk to the communities, to help them appreciate the importance of this wildlife, how it's connected to their livelihoods through tourism. Also, having these communities involved in the management of these natural resources so that they have a sense of ownership. If you feel you own a resource, you'll be interested in taking care of it. But if you don't feel you own the resource, the responsibility levels towards that particular resource also reduce. The other thing that needs to be done is that the Department of National Parks and Wildlife needs support. The NGOs that are based in Livingstone on the ground, they need support. So it's a collaborative effort that has to be put in place between CSOs, between NGOs, between government departments, so that a solution is found to protect and take care of these elephants. When these elephants get into the community, the other challenge that's there is that there is a dump site in Dambwa, just behind FRA. These elephants find their way to this dump site and they begin to eat from the dump site. They eat food that's thrown there. they are also beginning to eat plastics that are thrown there. Now, plastics are a danger, not only to agricultural animals, but to wildlife as well, because they then create problems in terms of the digestive tract for the elephants. So you don't want elephants eating plastic. So again, what's needed is support for the local NGOs that are trying to help with waste management issues. They need more support, they need more collaboration from other CSOs and NGOs. If that support is given, then of course it will be possible to keep the elephants away from the communities and away from these dump sites where they're exposed to plastic and food that they normally are not supposed to be eating.
All right, so we're speaking to Mr. Timothy Phiri, and he has highlighted some really key issues that are happening with the elephants in the Kaza area. And of course, I just feel so awful about those elephants, and this is just the beginning of us actually speaking about what's happening to those elephants. Obviously, they're digesting the wrong foods, the people that live in the area where they're passing. This is a World Heritage Site that really needs to be taken care of like a baby. All right, we'll be wrapping up on the other end, and we will be getting an update on the ecological side on Forest 27. The houses, there has been a notification that those that have built houses at Forest 27, obviously former no, not former politicians, but people that were in the previous regime, that's the Patriotic Front government, namely the former Vice President, Madam Nongawina, and other politicians that were part of the former regime, have been given up to 28th December 2021 to demolish the structures that they put on Forest 27. The question is, should those structures remain and the people that are occupying those places should just leave? Would that cause more ecological damage? I mean, if you've built a house, or if you have an idea about building a house, you do realize that the foundation, one way or another, will be disturbed. And Forest 27 has some of the freshest waters that we have in this part of the world, and it's got different species, and obviously it does help with the oxygen levels here in Lusaka. Keep watching the Katala Punga Show.
My name is Tal Mukupe, and this is Off the Bench.
Where do I start? Do you want me to start from the beginning?
But at the moment, I'm not that consistent with the diet.
So Tio, for the Caddies tournament is on at 0800 hours.
I'm simulating the fans being back in the stadium, so we are getting excited.
All about every single sport you can put your hand or mind to.
The weather changing up, making it extra more challenging. Extra more challenging.
Welcome back. So we're about to wrap up with Mr. Timothy Phiri, and we are finally discussing an update on Forest 27. The last time that I was there was the concern about how, when it was degazetted by the president, then President Edgar Chagwa Lungu, there was the concern about the houses that were being constructed there, and some had already been completed because of the ecological effects that would happen to Forest 27. So now the Lusaka City Council has given notice to some of the people that have actually built houses there. And this is because it's one thing for the president to degazette an area, and it's also another thing for those that would have activities taking place in a degazetted area to consult the Lusaka City Council, and allegedly this was not done. So we need to find out that if these houses need to be demolished on December 28, 2021, whether they should just be left and the people vacate the area, or the actual buildings remaining there is still a threat to Forest 27. So Mr. Phiri, this is basically an update of Forest 27. Lusaka City Council has given, in particular, obviously, notably, former Vice President, Madam Inonga Winner, that her house has to be obviously raised down. There are other former politicians of part of the former regime who built there, and also their structures have to be, taken down, demolished. If they don't do it themselves, the council moves in. Should those structures remain, the people move out, or, because what would be the ecological effect of this actually happening?
When it comes to whether or not the structures that have been put up in the degazetted portions of Forest 27 should be demolished, no one wants to see anyone's property demolished. It's never a good thing. It's never a good feeling to witness anything like that happening. But we have to go back in time and look at where this problem is coming from. There were 3 degazations that took place. The first one in 2017, the second one in 2018, and the third one in 2019. When these degazations took place, when they were done by the former president, Edgar Lungu, a number of people spoke about that issue. They questioned why the degazating was taking place. Why was this protected area, whose ecological functions are very well known, why was it being degazetted? And environmentalists spoke out and tried to meet the president. We pleaded with the president to reverse the whole process of degazating. This was long before anyone actually built in the area. Other NGOs later on actually took the matter to court, all in an effort to help government see what the consequences of degazating the area and beginning construction in the area would be. But government did not heed. In fact, most of these people that were pleading with government not to build structures in the area were referred to as anti-development and people that were just there to make noise or siding with the opposition party at that particular time. Fast forward to the current situation. Action taken a few years ago now is bearing consequences. Forest 27 is an important forest because the source for the Chalimbana is in this particular forest, the Chalimbana River. And the Chalimbana River feeds into the Chongwe River. I'm sure you heard recently the Minister of Health, Honorable Sylvia Maseo, was talking about cases of typhoid and dysentery in Lusaka. And these are arising because of water contaminated by sewage waste, fecal matter. It is situations like this where you build structures with boreholes, with soakaways in a recharge zone that takes water into the underground water system that actually leads to some of this pollution. So what we're now experiencing are the consequences of decisions made in the past. People will ask, the president has the power to degazette. Nothing can be done about this situation. They will ask and state. The response to that is, it's not the first time Forest 27 has been degazetted. In 1983, President Kaunda degazetted Forest 27. 13 years later, after people protested and 3,000 signatures were signed by residents of Lusaka, 1996, President Chiluba re-gazetted the area. So there's already a precedence. A sitting president can degazette, a sitting president can re-gazette. So the issue is not whether or not re-gazettion can take place. The president has the power to re-gazette. The real issue we should be asking ourselves is, were the reasons for degazetting in the first place genuine reasons? Were they justifiable reasons? Did they defend nature? Did they protect the interests of the majority of the residents in Lusaka that benefit from the underground water system? If the reason for degazetting did not take into account the ecological significance of the forest and the welfare of the majority of the people of Zambia, then there is valid reason to regazette the area. On whether or not demolishing should take place, the question that I would ask is this. When an average Zambian, when poor Zambians encroach on an area anywhere in Zambia, we know that once they are proven to be in the wrong, justice moves swiftly. Bulldozers come in the very next day and they bring down all their structures. Their economic capacity is not taken into account. The fact that they'll be losing property is not taken into account. Should the standards by which laws and regulations are applied change because of the status of the individual concerned? That's an important question we should look at. In my opinion, what should happen is what the law and regulations say should happen. We should not look at names, we should not look at faces. The issue is what is supposed to happen as per prescription of the regulations and laws of the council and of our country. If the laws say the best way to regenerate this area, to protect this area, to maintain its ecological functions means people have to remove property, then that's what's supposed to happen. It is very sad, it's unfortunate, but it could have been avoided had people listened to the plea from various stakeholders for development not to commence in this area when the initial degazation took place.
All right, so I'm speaking to Mr. Timothy Piri, environmentalist with Music Eco Care, and he has given us a huge insight. Kasanka National Park all the way to Livingstone, and the elephants path to National Park being affected by development and then passing through places where people actually live and they end up eating plastics. And of course, we'll be following up that story more at Spring 24 TV. And finally, we did touch on Forest 27. The question really is, I did ask, should these houses be demolished? Because the high-profile people that built houses there allegedly didn't consult the Lusaka City Council for the usage. And obviously, Mr. Piri did bring out an important point to say that we've seen encroachment across the country, and when people are against the law, there's no notice given over more than 3 weeks. Houses are actually get demolished. Right, keep watching the Katala Lupunga Show every weekday at 17:30, and make sure you keep watching Spring 24 TV. My name is Katala Lupunga.